Is it a no-brainer that the Panthers should select an edge rusher with the 8th overall pick? I'll give you the case for and against taking an edge at 8 right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Fridays, I answer your weekly Friday mailbag questions. All you got to do is either at me on Twitter at Julian Council, DM me on Twitter at Julian Council, or just at me over on Blue Sky at Julian Council to get your questions in for this week's edition of the weekly Friday mailbag. Today's episode, Locked On Panthers, is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins in 16 days. 16 more days until we are there, night one of the 2025 NFL draft, and 16 days away from knowing who the Panthers will take with the 8th overall pick. Will it be an edge rusher? Is that a no-brainer, or is there a case against Carolina going with an edge at 8th overall? We'll talk to Locked On Georgia Bulldogs host Clint Shamblin later on here on the show, as there's two prospects that Carolina could take there at 8. One of them, who's been mocked to him a ton, his name is Jalon Walker. The other is Mykell Williams. Want to get his perspective on those two dogs and how they may fit in Carolina. One maybe at 8, the other one, if Carolina potentially trades back, that could make sense there in the teens or 20s in Mykell Williams. But before we get there, I want to give you my case for and my reluctant case against the Panthers taking an edge rusher with the 8th overall pick. So let's start off first with the case for Carolina going with an edge at 8th overall. Number one, the Panthers edge rushers just simply are not good enough, in my opinion, when looking at their current construction. We're looking at Jadeveon Clowney. We're looking at DJ Wonnum, Pat Jones II, who just came over from Minnesota, and yes, DJ Johnson and Amari Barno as well. Those 5 are not, in my opinion, good enough for Carolina to field the kind of defense that you all want and expect from the over 30 seasons now of Carolina Panthers football that we have watched here in Charlotte. You expect there to be a dominant presence out there on the edge like there has been for the vast majority of the time here in Carolina. But last year, that was not the case after they decided to move on from Brian Burns. And you can question whether Burns was a dominant presence when he was in Carolina and whether he was last year in New York. But one thing you cannot question is Clowney is not better than Brian Burns. Neither is DJ Wonnum. Neither is DJ Johnson. Neither is Amari Barno. And Pat Jones II will not be a better player than Brian Burns in Carolina or at any point in his career in all likelihood. And looking at the Panthers last year, they were 29th in the NFL in sacks of only 32. They ranked dead last DFL in pressure percentage at 15.2. That is not good enough. And they blitzed a ton, y'all, and they still could not get home. Why? Because the talent is not good enough. Now, Jadeveon Clowney, you looked at what he did last year. In totality, I do think that he came pretty close to living up to the contract that they asked him to come in and play on, as he was able to play the vast majority of the games, was fine off the edge as far as a run stopper, was fine as far as getting some pressure, just to not equate to that many sacks. Depending upon what you look at. If you look at Pro Football Reference, his pressures were the same from a year ago and in the previous year in Baltimore. You look at PFF, then they were not nearly the same, but still 5.5 sacks last year. That is what you should be expecting from Jadeveon Clowney at this point in time in his career. And if you get that, you should be happy about that again here in 2025. DJ Wonnum, different case, came over, was actually the first edge rusher Carolina signed after trading away Brian Burns to the Giants, but he dealt with a blood clot that having missed the first 9 games of the season, debuted in Munich, and we did see Wonnum had some juice to him, had 4 sacks in those final 8 games. You have to think if he would have played a full season, probably totals that 8 sack count he had in 2023 and in 2021 when he was with the Vikings. So if healthy, can be a solid option, but is he the option? I'm not so sure. DJ Johnson, what did he do last year? Well, he was credited with 1 pressure and a half a sack on the season and 128 pass rush snaps. He's just not going to do it for you. Overall, the unit that Carolina had last year at edge rusher, that's counting Echo Leota, who was cut earlier in the season, Charles Harris, who's cut midway through the season. That outside linebacker group had 15 total sacks a year ago. You tell me, is that good enough? Because I think it's very clearly not good enough at all. If we're talking about 2 guys, we're talking about Clowney and Woonem combining for 15, and then the other guys adding in another 8 or 9, okay, yeah, you can take that. But when the whole unit gets 15, that's not what you want, especially when you look in Cincinnati. Trey Hendrickson had 17 and a half alone. You look up in Cleveland, Myles Garrett had 14 sacks by himself. But I'm sure had Aiden Hutchinson stayed healthy, he was going to blow past that 15 sack total that the Panthers outside linebackers had last year in 2025. You can say to me, well, Julian, they have Pat Jones coming in. Okay, cool. Pat Jones had a career high 7 sacks last year in Minnesota, but he only has 12 as a career total. So it's not like he's been a consistent guy. Maybe he's emerging into one. And looking at PFF, he was 94th of 119 edge rushers last year. His pass rush grade was 105th at 109. So it's not like they got a top tier edge rusher. And when texting with a buddy up there who covers the Vikings, he told me everybody likes Pat, but he's a Jag, just a guy. So not a difference maker in all likelihood coming up in Carolina. So to me, they're not good enough. And 2, they have not replaced Brian Burns. And when you looked at the trade last year, you had to know right then and there, considering at the point in time it happened and what Carolina's needs were offensively, they were going to be heading into this offseason here in 2025 with a clear need to add an edge rusher and to try to actually replace Brian Burns. They weren't going to be able to do that last year with Woonem, with Clowney, with anyone they're going to bring in. And the hope was that bringing in Jadeveon and bringing in DJ would be enough to get them by last season. And you could maybe make the case that they got by, but they got by with the worst defense in the history of the Panthers organization and worst scoring defense in the history of the NFL. So you tell me, did they get by at edge rusher without Brian Burns last year? I would say no. Burns had 8.5 sacks last year in his first year with the Giants. Clowney and Woonem combined had 9.5. So Burns by himself was almost equal to what Clowney and Woonem, 2 players, were. Now, provided, understand that Woonem missed half the season, so cannot forget about that. When I look at the roster, Clowney's not a replacement of Brian Burns. You look at their stats, Burns has been a better player during his career than Clowney has been. You look at Woonem as well. I think there's upside there, but he is not what Brian Burns has been and will be and is right now. And same thing of Pat Jones. Certainly DJ Johnson is not that replacement. Finding a true replacement for Brian Burns, I think, is something Carolina should want to do in this draft, in particular at 8th overall. And at number 3, they don't draft again until 57. They may find a way to get up earlier in the second round, but as we sit here right now, they only have 1 pick in, well, sorry, not 1 pick, but they have the 8th overall pick, and then it's 57. That's a big gap for Carolina to have right now. And the good thing is they were able to get a second round pick because it would have been 1 and then 74 had they not made that trade with Brian Burns going to the Giants and then being able to have those 2 second round picks and feel comfortable enough to move back in the second round when the Rams want to come up and get Braden Fisk out of Florida State. So can they afford to wait? I don't know. Maybe they can, but to me, I don't really want to wait that long until 57 when you could see some of the top guys go off the board and maybe there could be a run on some of these top tier edge rushers there in the first round, maybe early second round of this draft. What about the case against taking an edge rusher at 8? Well, number 1, they've already gone pretty defense heavy this offseason. So do they need to get another one during the draft? When you think about it, okay, one of them, as I mentioned, there's upside there. He missed half the season due to a blood clot, and had he played the full season, he's maybe an 8-9 sack guy. If he's healthy this year, can he not be that? And then year 2 of Clowney in this scheme, there's that consistency there. Possibly he had a decent amount of pressures last year. Could that equate into more sacks this upcoming season? Could it be he goes from 5.5 right back to the 9 sack total, and then Woonem's doing that as well, and you put those guys together, that's 18 sacks, which combined is more than what the unit overall 15 had last year. And then you get Pat Jones in there, and maybe he has another solid season where as an ancillary player, he gets about 5 sacks, and you add those together. That's 23 between those 3 guys. And you feel pretty good about that, but that's a lot of hoping and wishing that's going to happen. And hope is not a plan. And yes, coaches are always hoping, but you also have to have an expectation. I don't think it's fair to necessarily expect all of that, but they did add to every level of the defense. And offensively, yeah, they brought back all of the talent there on the offensive line. They brought in a running back, Enrico Dowdle, and Andy Dalton's coming back as QB2, but it's not like they did a ton at tight end, and they could use a tight end. There's one in Tyler Warren who could make some sense there at 8 there. They could use a wide receiver. Matthew Golden, we talked about him last week. Tedero McMillan, they could still use a receiver, even though Dave Canales says that he believes they have their wide receiver 1 of the future in Xavier Legette. There could be defensive tackle. Maybe they want to go that way. Corner, who knows? But it's already pretty defensive heavy. Maybe they want to focus on offense there at 8 instead. Number 2, and this kind of goes against the concern that I have as far as the case for, is that this is a deep edge rusher class, and it's possible that Carolina could afford to wait until 57. You look at some of the top names: Abdul Carter, he'll be gone off the board. Jalon Walker, Mike Green, Mykell Williams, James Pierce Jr., Donovan Ezaraku, Shamar Stewart, Nick Scorton, Landon Jackson, Princely Uman and all of those guys, according to PFF's big board, are top 50 prospects. Does not mean that they're all going to go into top 50, but this is considered, as we talked to Kyle Krabs about this yesterday on the show, an extremely deep edge rusher group. So it's not like Carolina's required to get one at 8. Now, you would think that if you're drafting at 8 and you're getting an edge rusher, you're getting one of the best of this crop. But if it's pretty deep and there's a guy who can come in and can develop into a top tier guy down the road while playing in more of a backup rotation role this season, why not wait until 57 and get a true edge, especially if there's concerns about whether Jalon Walker can be that in Carolina, if he indeed is going to be worthy of that 8th overall pick. And then number 3, as far as case against, best player available. That's what Carolina's planning on doing. That's what Dan Morgan, that's what Brant Tillis said 2 weeks ago during their pre-draft press conference that they were having the ability to do, considering what they did during free agency. And that goes back to, they've already gone pretty defense heavy this offseason. They're going to look at their draft board, and if they get to the 8th overall pick and that top player is not an edge rusher and they feel like they need to go best player available, can you really argue against that? So that's the case against. The case for, I don't think they're good enough right now at edge. They haven't replaced Brian Burns, and do you really want to wait until 57? Case against, they've already gone pretty defense heavy this offseason. Maybe it's time to focus on the offense early. It's a deep edge rusher class, so it is possible that they can afford to wait to 57. And they say going best player available. If that best player is not an edge rusher, well, then you got to take the best player available for Carolina. So we'll see what they decide to do, but that's the case for and against taking edge rusher with the 8th overall pick. Locked On Bulldogs host Clint Shamblin. He has pretty good insight on Mykell Williams and Jalon Walker, and he'll let us know what those guys potentially could bring to Carolina here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. You've probably heard of Chewy. They really do have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, whether you're shopping for food, treats, or even pet health care. Chewy makes it fast, easy, and affordable. With over 100,000 products from all your favorite brands, Chewy has everything your pet needs, from food and treats to toys, beds, and grooming. And it's not just for dogs and cats. They've got supplies for birds, fish, reptiles, and small pets too. Chewy also makes it easy to manage your pet's health with prescriptions, telehealth, vet visits, and even in-person vet clinics rolling out nationwide. Auto Ship is a game changer. You can set up automatic deliveries for food, treats, or any essentials so you never run out. You can easily change or cancel at any time. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewy.com or clicking the link in the description. Save $20 off your first order with free shipping by clicking the link in the description. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. All right, back here on Locked On Panthers, and as promised, one of the 2 hosts of Locked On Bulldogs, Clint Shamblin, here on the show now to discuss 2 of those edge rushers we've been talking about a lot over the last month as Panthers prepare to select 8th overall in the 2025 draft at the end of the month. Clint, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Good. Glad to have you here too, man. And Georgia has been putting out an insane amount of talent on the defensive side of the ball since Kirby Smart got there. And I don't see it stopping anytime soon. It's certainly not going to stop this upcoming draft cycle. And there's one guy in particular that I have seen mocked to the Panthers over and over and over again, and that is Jalon Walker, who actually is a South Carolina born, North Carolina native from Salisbury, right up the road from Charlotte. He talked about that last week. How, it'd be nice to be back home. What about him makes him a top 10 pick? And what do you think has people salivating over the idea of him coming to Carolina and fulfilling maybe both the linebacker need and the need on the edge?
Well, here's what's why you just put it two in the same category. Jalon Walker was listed and came to Georgia as an inside linebacker. This guy is big, tall, and fast and got eraser speed sideline to sideline. Roquan Smith is my favorite dog in the entire world, just my personal favorite. Jalon Walker is not Roquan Smith. That's a true inside linebacker in the mold of Ray Lewis. However, he's just a tier below that, which you're talking all world in Roquan. But off the edge, we saw him move around a ton in this Kirby Smart-led defense. And coming off the edge is where you saw him absolutely feast. So getting after the quarterback was insanely important. That Texas game, that first time going to Austin, they wreaked havoc off the edges against that lead offense. And that's what Jalon brings. He can play inside linebacker. He can go sideline to sideline. But what's wild is coming off the edge is his secondary trait. And he was all-American at that, which is just absolutely bananas to think about.
Yeah, wins the Butkus Award last year for the most outstanding linebacker in college football, which makes you one of the best defensive players. And at that Texas game, I brought it up to folks up here all the time. Like, you don't have to look at the stats. Like, go back and watch that game in Athens and watch the game in Atlanta as well when Georgia won the SEC title. And you'll see what the kind of destruction that both Walker and Mykell Williams, who we're going to talk about a little bit later, were able to do, and how that can translate. Because Kelvin Banks, now he didn't play in the game in Atlanta, but he played the first time around in Austin. That guy is going to potentially be a top 10 pick. He's going in the first round, and they were all over him. Cam Williams as well, that right tackle. He's going to get drafted probably day 2. It's not like they were doing it against UTSA or against, no offense, Mississippi State, but Mississippi State, because they were bad last year. Like they were doing it against one of the best tackles in college football. Now, what I've heard also about Jalon is his leadership. And that has been something that people talk about, has just been famous down there in Athens. Do you have any particular stories about that leadership that he's displayed over the last couple of years down there?
Absolutely. You look at a couple of years ago, Nakobe Dean getting up in the face of guys in the championship game, and that needed to come together and coalesce into actually something good. Jalon Walker took that mantle on. And when you hear guys that have gone through the program talk about Jalon Walker and his leadership, it was he who the entire defense looked to. There were probably Malachi Starks is very talented in the secondary, but when you have a guy like Jalon, so every single time other dogs who are in the league now would come back, they would gravitate towards Jalon. And coming out of practice, Kirby Smart loves practice. If you hear about Georgia, which is why all these guys are NFL ready, he says practice to me is more important than the game. In the game, you just go have fun. I want to know Monday through Thursday, what are you grinding? How are you getting those nuts and bolts? And when guys would come back, you hear every single Nakobe Dean, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, when they come back to practice, they are blown away. There was multiple interviews talking, oh my gosh, Jalen's got all of those guys pointed and ready to go. This last year for Georgia was a down year. We made the playoff, lost to Notre Dame, but Kirby Smart said it was the most incredible coaching job we've done because the team took a step back. Defensively, we were gutted up the middle. And so Jalon had to go off the edge and be in the middle tackling with a suspect interior defensive line, which was totally abnormal for us. And the guys, like I said, Nolan Smith had one particular interview in which he said, I can't believe the growth that this guy has. He could fit in a locker room today with us at the Eagles. Now, you say about a 21-year-old kid in college who's leading not just college kids, but he says, no, he could vibe with us in grown man locker room. That's a whole different beast. And that's exactly what he brings to the table.
And we're talking about Super Bowl winners saying that about a guy
there you go.
His junior year down there, and like to come in and to have that kind of impact immediately. And I mean, you're right about this being a down year for Georgia where they still won the SEC, but clearly you expect to, at the very least, to get to the semifinal of the playoff now to the expanded 12-team playoff. And like, I go back into that game against Texas, like, I don't think there's a lot of confidence in Georgia winning that game. And then we were reminded pretty quickly, oh, that's right. Kirby Smart is always going to have these guys ready. And he's kind of a psychopath in getting these guys to believe
Yes,
that no one believed in us. Like they blow out TCU. No one believed in us. Like, Kirby, what are we doing, man? But that's why I love him. That's why I love Kirby Smart.
He's masterful at it, man. Like, he gets his dudes playing for him every single week. It's fantastic.
You just cannot doubt what he's going to do. So we talk about with Jalon, he can play off-ball linebacker on the inside. He can play on the edge. Looking at the NFL, like, what do you think is probably his best position? Because I got plenty of people being like, well, Carolina needs to get like a true edge rusher, or maybe he's just better off at the off-ball linebacker spot. What do you personally, from what you've seen from him, think he's probably going to excel at the most when he comes to the league?
I think a blitz-happy off-ball linebacker. So if the Panthers have an aggressive defense, if they're saying we're going to be in attack mode, we're not some of these conservative, like I think back to the old Tampa 2 system in Tampa Bay. Like, that was just we're going to sit back, or Seattle Seahawks when they had their run. We just said, hey, we're going to line up and beat you in man coverage, beat you in zone. We're just going to beat the man across from us. If there's a movement or in a DC, so if the Panthers are getting him for off-ball linebacker, I think he actually performs very well in that in the NFL. He translates to that very well. You have to have a little bit more of a lean to, and maybe a true edge guy, maybe need a little bit taller, a little bit more bend coming around that corner. And that's where a guy like Mykell Williams, 6'4", 6'5", he fits that a little bit more. So if the Panthers can utilize him in moving him around spots and attacking him, off-ball linebacker is likely his best case scenario. If you're anticipating him just to be, nobody runs a 3-4 anymore, but think back to that where, hey, we're going to get a guy on the edge and you can drop back in coverage, cover the flat, and then come off. I don't like that at all. And like I said, not a lot of teams do that. But if you're going to put him in the middle, and then you're gonna stunt him, A-gap blitzes, like Georgia has this double shotgun A-gap blitz they run, and you saw it stunt a couple of times in which guys would move and then they would come. He's a menace when he does that. So if you're asking him to be a Roquan that's just, hey, I'm going to stand in the middle and go sideline to sideline and cover the running back, I don't like that. If he's coming downhill, I really, really like that. And then combine that with, I'll drop back in zone and cover a tight end as well. Make sure the underneath is there. He fits that scheme really, really well.
Okay. Majero Vero, the DC here in Carolina. It's a 3-4 base, and last year they did blitz a lot. And I think that was mainly because they just didn't have the guys who could get home. I do think that he's probably a little bit more conservative than a lot of fans would like, especially when it comes to coverage, where a lot of people are like, why does JC Horn not always follow the number one receiver? That's just not the scheme that he runs. So that would be interesting to see how he would utilize him. The old DC, when Matt Rule was the coach, Phil Snow was somebody who was very aggressive. A guy like Frankie Louvu, who left last year for agency to go to Washington, had a great year under Dan Quinn. He was the kind of a guy that you would love to see Jalon Walker utilize in that kind of same kind of way. But I don't know if that would necessarily be the case. But the versatility that I know would have Carolina interested. Now, you brought up Mykell Williams. That's another guy. I think back in January when this whole draft cycle was really getting started, he was a favorite pick for Carolina there at 8. And it seems, I don't know what the deal is, that he's not necessarily as sexy of a pick in the top 10 now, but he's still probably going to be a first rounder in what's declared to be a deep edge rusher class. You talk about him. What makes him special, and how do you see him translating to the next level?
I find it hilarious. I don't know how NFL scouting departments continue to get paid by people. I literally don't. I'm so confused because, like you said, I don't have to look at stat. Just turn on the tape of the Texas game. When Mykell Williams is on the field, he wreaks havoc. Like Kirby Smart, this is the thing that people don't understand about Kirby. He likes to sub and keep guys fresh throughout the entire year. He takes care of his guys. He doesn't have a running back that does 35 carries a game. He has 3 running backs that do 10 carries a game. His outside linebackers and guys that are in the positions are 5 stars across the board. He's got to get them PT. So Mykell, Nolan Smith, this was the same exact knock Nolan Smith had coming out when he got drafted. It was, well, look at the production, only 3 sacks. Oh my, that doesn't look, he didn't get after quarterback. He couldn't. Well, you look at the film and the dude just absolutely manhandled other tackles and tight ends and was able to run down running backs when they got outside, and he kept quarterbacks inside the pocket. And now you look at him, he's like, oh yeah, sure enough, he's wreaking havoc for the Eagles because the Eagles turned on film. That's what they did. They didn't do this stupid stat watching game. Mykell Williams fits exactly that mold. So I hear all the time, He doesn't have the motor. He doesn't have the discipline. Maybe Jalon Walker has it. I'm like, oh, maybe. I don't know. Those are two different guys. But I do know Mykell loves football, just like is grinding about it, is all about it. And yes, the scheme Georgia ran is not going to be a stat monster scheme. It never will be. There will be no Heisman winner at Georgia for the rest of the time Kirby Smart's there because he doesn't play that game. He just wins.
Yeah.
Mykell Williams has lean, has incredible, a huge bag of moves. He is not just a one-trick pony speed rusher. He will club, he will go under, he will do stunts. He can go up against interior linemen who are a little bit bigger and bull rush them, as well as get out on a tight end and beat them to the edge. I think it is a deep class, and probably there's a lot of very talented people. Mykell Williams, in a couple of years, could be Nolan Smith-esque in the league. I think that's his basement. Actually, Nolan Smith has a higher ceiling. I think the basement is still Nolan Smith, which is a havoc-wreaking end in any system. He could fit any system. I don't care what you play. He fits everywhere across the board.
Okay. And here's the thing too, like you look at Georgia's schedule, because you bring up a great point about how Kirby utilizes those guys. Like, they bring in a ton of dudes. And in this portal era where, I mean, Georgia doesn't really lose a lot of guys. You got to keep guys happy. You know, Kirby's not necessarily that caught up in it. He's come out and said, like, you got to want to win here first. And you got to think about the team and then achieving the ultimate goal. Like, he's not about these guys, the individual kind of thing. Like, you're going to get your money. Don't worry about it. Like, Georgia's going to take care of you, but he's going to utilize a lot of guys. You look at their schedule. Like, how many games did Georgia really have to play those guys? Clemson, I mean, first half, that was a game. Second half, Avalanche. Tennessee Tech, no. Kentucky was a weird game, but yeah, I mean, that was a game they had to play close. Obviously, the Alabama game. Auburn, no. Mississippi State, that was weird, but not really. The Texas game, like that, after Bama, like that was a game like they had to play. And what happened? Those guys showed up. Florida was a weird one, but okay. Ole Miss, I mean, you lose that game. Like, so, I mean, there was probably tougher games this year than in years past where it'd be like, especially when the SEC East was in existence. It was like a one-game schedule. This year, much more tougher schedule. Again, the same schedule this upcoming fall. So we'll see how the Dogs do with that. But it's not like they asked him to do a ton. Now, I'm curious because you bring up Nolan Smith. This is kind of the last one I have for you on Mykell. He seemingly, to me, has the same body type of guy like Trayvon Walker, who went number 1 overall a couple years ago. I look at both those guys, 6'5", listed in college. Walker, 275, whereas Williams, 265. I mean, 10-pound difference. Significant, but not really. Do you like that comp? Because you look at Mykell, 13.5 sacks. We talk about the lack of production, put that in quotes. And then you have Trayvon, 9 sacks. Like,
so this is what's, again, wild to me about scouting departments. I don't get it. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Watch tape. Trayvon comes out. He goes highly picked, and year one comes on the scene and doesn't get 20 sacks. And so everybody says, oh, he's a bust. All of a sudden, last couple of years, he's come on, and now people are saying, oh, this is a dude for the Jaguars that can actually I like that comp a lot. Nolan Smith is the same progression. They're on the same path. Every single one of these dogs, it's almost like a carbon copy with them. They have a little bit different skill set along the way. Some are a little bit twitchier. Nolan is a little bit more hunkered against the run. You saw him in the Super Bowl just absolutely obliterate anybody coming across his face.
Yeah.
Mykell isn't that. Nolan's probably the best run defender out of those three. He's probably somewhere in between pass rushing for them. And I do like the comp. He is closer in the skill set of that, of a Trayvon, to say, I am going to get after the quarterback, and you give him a year because the skill set is there. It's 5 stars coming out. You watch his tape coming out. He was beating guys up and down. And anytime Texas, Bama, the top tier guys, that's what Kirby cares about. Sure, Dogs did get a little, like, we played down to competition. Mississippi State was a close game, which was really gross and disgusting.
Yeah.
Everybody hated that because it got muddied up. Kentucky, Kirby's fine fighting in a phone booth for 4 quarters with Stoops, and he doesn't care. He said, I'll beat you. I don't care. I'll beat you with field goals. You can't overtake me. So when you want to do that, we play down. But against the other guys that he will be playing in the league, right, just apples to apples, he's crushing them with moves and off the edge. They can't get a hand on him. Now, the NFL, you're going to get progression. You're going to get the top, 0.5% of guys in the entire nation. I get that. He's going to be an accomplished pass rusher in this league. I have no doubt about it. These two guys are going to hit no matter where they go, no matter what team they go to. The talent is there. The desire is there. And it might take 1 year of getting acclimated. And I don't know, for honest to goodness, I don't know Mykell when people say about low motor. Maybe it's just let me get out because he's not gregarious and he's not outgoing like a Nolan. Like that's not his personality. You give him a year in the system, I promise you, he's going to come with a bag and he's going to be just whipping guys left and right.
Sounds like to me, people got to stop doubting these dogs coming out of Kirby's program. I don't love, because a couple years ago with CJ Stroud, people were like, oh, well, an Ohio State quarterback's never had success. Like, okay, well, different guys, different coaches, different schemes, different decade. Like that has nothing to do with that. Now, this, you could try to, well, if you're going to say that about that, should you say the thing about Georgia? It's like, okay, well, it's the same system. It's like these guys are coming in as 5 stars, which expected to be All-Americans, first round kind of guys eventually. And Kirby is getting them to the league and they're having production. They're going into the right schemes. Like Philadelphia, we know what they are. They're taking care of it. And there's a reason the Eagles keep taking Georgia players. And then what happens? They win a Super Bowl. So Mykell Williams, Jalon Walker, either one of those guys could come to Carolina, have success. And wherever it goes, sounds like they're probably going to be in a good place. But Clint, man, really appreciate your insight here. What you guys do over there on Locked On Bulldogs. Check them out over on X at Dogs Podcast. And also check out the podcast where you listen to your favorite podcast and over on YouTube. Clint, got anything going on right now that you want to hit on? I know baseball, I don't know if you guys cover it, but big baseball season for the Dogs so far with Wes Johnson's crew banging out home runs again.
I mean, just how to feed the trees. Every single ball that flies out of that park is hitting those. It's just ridiculous how that ball is flying out of the ballpark. Baseball's doing great. We have a bunch of spring news going on about Georgia right now, and new running back as well as getting in transfer portal wide receivers. Kirby, it's dangerous. He's got a better defense than last year, and all of a sudden he's got talented wide receiver guys, which he's never had at Georgia. Look out, y'all, because it's going to get dangerous on offense for Georgia coming up. We're covering that spring ball right now.
Yeah, got the A&M receiver coming over. Got Zachariah Branch from USC also coming over. So, yeah, could be interesting for, I guess, Gunnar Stockton trying to get the job. We'll see where that works out. So, exciting year coming up for the Dogs again this fall. And, of course, exciting spring if you guys are interested in college baseball as well. Take a quick pause, come back, and wrap up the show here on Locked On Panthers. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets to a same game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Thanks again to Locked On Bulldogs host Clint Shamblin for coming on here and giving us some insight there on Jalon Walker and Mykell Williams. And I know a lot of you may not be sold on one or two of those prospects, but I think after that, and I'm guessing anytime we bring on any of these college hosts, they're going to get you pretty pumped up, but really good stuff there from Clint. And yeah, I'm more bought in on Mykell Williams than I thought I was going to be. And maybe it's time to stop betting against what these dogs can do once you get to the NFL. Kirby Smart has built a monster down there in Athens. And why not bring one of those monsters over here to Carolina to help out a defense that, again, was the worst scoring defense in the history of the National Football League and by far the worst defense in Carolina Panthers franchise history as well. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Hosted by yours, Julian Council. Again, subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because I'm back on Friday answering your weekly Friday mailbag questions, either at me or DM me on Twitter or at me on Blue Sky to get those questions into me right now. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I'll talk to you all on Wednesday.